Commander Elias Kane drifted alone in the vastness of space. The stars outside his viewport seemed endless, scattered like diamonds across the black ocean of the universe. But for him, they were not beautiful tonight. They were cold, silent witnesses to his failure. His ship, once proud and reliable, had fallen silent. The navigation systems were broken, the engines refused to respond, and the communication array lay in pieces after a violent storm of cosmic radiation. He was lost, far from known star maps, with only the hum of failing life support to remind him he was still alive. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand down his face. His reflection stared at him in the dark glass of the cockpit. A man, in his late 30s, eyes tired, hair a little unkempt from days of stress, and a uniform that had lost its crispness. He was not ready to die, not like this, drifting in the middle of nowhere, forgotten by the galaxy he had sworn to serve. He thought about Earth, about the smell of rain on soil, about the voices of people on busy streets, about the sound of children laughing. Those things felt so far away now, like dreams that were fading. The silence pressed heavily on him until it was broken by a faint crackle. His heart skipped. He leaned forward, tapping the console. A signal? Impossible. No human ship traveled this far. But it was there, a thread of sound cutting through the emptiness. At first it was just static, then a voice smooth and calm, unlike any human voice he had heard. It carried an echo as if it came from a vast chamber, and yet it was clear. He froze, staring at the console as the voice repeated itself. Traveler, do not be afraid. You are not alone. Elias swallowed hard, his hand trembling over the controls. Alien. It had to be alien. The words were translated somehow into his language, but the rhythm and tone felt foreign, otherworldly. He tried to speak, his voice hoarse. This is Commander Elias Kane of the Terran Fleet. Identify yourself. The response came with no delay, as though the speaker had been waiting for him. I am Sarathis, Queen of Aloria. We have been watching, and we invite you to safety. Do not resist. He blinked, shocked. A queen? An invitation? His mind swirled with disbelief. Humanity had always suspected alien life, but never before had he spoken to one. He thought of all the training manuals, all the possible first contact protocols, but none of them prepared him for being invited to the homeworld of an alien queen. Lights appeared in the distance, growing brighter against the dark. At first, he thought they were stars, but they moved with precision, forming patterns, then arranging themselves into a formation. Ships. Dozens of them. They surrounded his small vessel, not in a threatening manner, but in a protective circle. Their surfaces glowed faintly with shifting colors, as if alive, as if breathing. He felt both fear and awe. Your ship is dying. The Queen's voice came again, softer now. We will guide you to safety. Surrender control. Every instinct in him screamed against giving away his ship to unknown beings. But his life support had less than 48 hours left, and his engines were beyond repair. He had no choice. Slowly, he reached out and deactivated manual control. The console flickered, then glowed with alien symbols, shimmering across his screen. His ship began to move on its own, carried by invisible forces. The alien fleet turned, and he followed helplessly in their embrace. The stars stretched, then shifted as they guided him toward their world. Elias sat back in silence, his hands gripping the armrests. His mind was racing. Why him? Why save him? What did they want? Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. Time felt strange in the grip of so much uncertainty. Then, through the endless dark, a world came into view. It was unlike any planet he had seen. Vast oceans glimmered with light, glowing with colors that seemed alive. Forests of crystal spread across continents, reflecting the stars' shine in 1,000 directions. Towers of silver rose from cities that glowed faintly, as though the very ground pulsed with energy. It was beautiful, surreal, and terrifying. His ship descended, guided through an atmosphere that shimmered like liquid light. He pressed his face to the viewport, unable to look away. The city below was alive with movement. Structures shifted as though grown rather than built. Flying vessels glided gracefully between towers, leaving trails of pale blue light. He had dreamed of alien worlds since childhood, but nothing had prepared him for this. The landing was gentle. His ship settled onto a platform that seemed to form itself from the ground, rising to meet him. The engines shut down completely, as if the planet itself had absorbed their energy. He sat there, staring at the silent console, breathing heavily. Then the hatch unlocked with a hiss. Elias stood slowly, his legs weak, his heart pounding in his chest. He pulled on his uniform jacket, straightened it, and walked to the airlock. The door opened, and light poured in. They were waiting for him. Tall figures stood in elegant armor that shimmered like liquid silver, their faces partly concealed behind masks of crystal. Their movements were graceful, almost too smooth. They bowed slightly as he stepped forward, and then parted to reveal a figure walking toward him. She was taller than him by at least a head, her presence commanding, yet not threatening. Her skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the light of her world. Her eyes glowed with a calm intensity, and her voice, when she spoke, was the same one that had reached him in the void. "Commander Elias Kane," she said, her words carrying a strange resonance. "Welcome to Aeloria. I am Serathis, queen of this world. Do not fear. You are safe here." Elias swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. Why me?" The queen smiled gently, though her expression carried a weight of something deeper. "Because we have been waiting, and because there is much you do not yet know." Her words filled him with both wonder and dread. He had been saved, but the reason for it was still hidden. As he stood before the alien queen, beneath the strange sky of her world, Elias realized his journey was only beginning. Elias followed the queen through a wide path of light that seemed to form itself under their steps. The air felt different, not heavy like Earth's, but soft, almost alive, as if it carried a quiet energy. Strange scents drifted through the breeze, a mix of sweet flowers and something metallic, like ozone after a storm. He turned his head slowly, trying to take in every detail around him. The platform stretched outward, merging into a city that seemed to grow rather than be built. Towers curved toward the sky, their surfaces glimmering as if made from living crystal. Pathways wound between them, glowing faintly, guiding travelers with gentle light. The people of this world moved gracefully. Some wore robes that shimmered, with shifting colors, others armor that looked like liquid metal, but all carried themselves with an elegance Elias had never seen. They looked at him curiously, though not with hostility. Their eyes glowed faintly, as though reflecting the energy of the world itself. He felt small under their gaze, a single human among a civilization beyond anything he had known. Queen Serathis walked at the center, her presence commanding but calm. Elias tried to study her without being obvious. She was tall and slender, her features sharp but not harsh, her eyes glowing with quiet intensity. Every movement she made seemed deliberate yet natural, as if the entire world bent itself gently around her. They entered a wide hall that opened like a blossom as they approached. The walls shifted, rising and folding to form arches. Light poured, and through transparent surfaces that revealed the city outside. The hall itself pulsed with color, as if alive, and Elias realized the structure was not built of stone or metal, but something organic, something that grew and adapted. At the center stood a circular platform surrounded by flowing water that glowed faintly blue. The queen gestured, and Elias followed her across a narrow bridge. The water rippled as if reacting to their presence. She turned to him, her voice soft, but carrying easily in the great chamber. "You are far from your people," she said. "And yet you are here among mine. Do you wonder why?" Elias met her glowing gaze. "Of course I wonder. My ship was broken. I was lost. You saved me, but you don't even know me. Why bring me here?" The queen's expression held both warmth and gravity. "We know more of you than you think. You are human. Your kind is still young in the galaxy. But you are not unseen. Her words unsettled him. He thought of Earth, of the long years humanity had spent searching the stars, hoping for contact. And here, before him, was proof that not only did other civilizations exist, but they had been watching all along. The Queen gestured, and the chamber shifted. Images appeared in the air around them. Stars, worlds, great fleets moving across the void. Elias turned slowly, his mouth slightly open as he tried to take it all in. The images were so vivid they felt real, as though he could step into them. He saw towering cities on worlds of gas and stone, seas that shimmered with life and creatures beyond imagination. "You are not the first to walk the stars," the Queen said, her voice carrying a weight that made Elias's chest tighten. "There are civilizations older than mine, some lost to time, others still strong. We have seen them rise and we have seen them fall." Elias stepped closer to the floating images. He saw a planet crumble, its surface breaking apart into glowing fragments. He saw fleets shatter under storms of energy. He saw life extinguished, entire civilizations vanishing in silence. His hands clenched unconsciously. "And humanity?" he asked quietly. The images shifted, and now he saw Earth, small and blue, turning slowly against the dark. He saw human ships, clumsy compared to the elegance of the fleets he had just witnessed, but still moving with determination. He saw humans building, reaching, daring. The Queen's eyes softened. "You are different. Your kind is not old, not powerful, but there is something in you that others do not have. You adapt, you endure, you fight against impossible odds and still rise. That is why you are here." Elias frowned, struggling to understand. "You brought me all this way. Because of humanity? Because of what you think we are?" Sarathis tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Because of what I know you are. We face a time of change. The galaxy shifts, storms gather. My people are strong, but we lack what you have. We saw your arrival long before you were born, and now you are here." Her words left him silent. 1,000 questions burned inside him, but he could not find the right one to ask first. He turned back to the floating image of Earth, his chest tightening with longing. He thought of the people back home who had no idea that far beyond their skies an alien queen was speaking of them as if they were part of some great design. The Queen gestured and the images faded, the chamber quieted, leaving only the faint sound of glowing water. "You are weary," she said. "Rest, and you will see more of our world. There is much to learn." She gestured, and 2 attendants stepped forward. They wore robes that shifted, like waves of light. They bowed to Elias, their movements precise but not unfriendly. He hesitated, glancing at the Queen, then followed the attendants through a curving passage. They led him to a chamber that overlooked the city. The walls were transparent, revealing towers that shone like starlight and skies that shifted between deep blue and pale silver, as if the planet itself breathed. A bed formed from the floor as he entered, smooth and soft, adjusting itself as though it knew the shape of his body. The attendants bowed again and left him alone. Elias sat on the edge of the strange bed, staring out at the city. His heart still raced, his mind struggling to process everything. He was alive. He had been saved, but he was also caught in something far larger than he could understand. Why had they really brought him here? Could he trust them? He lay back slowly, the bed molding around him, supporting every part of his body. The faint glow of the city lit the room. He closed his eyes, but sleep did not come quickly. His thoughts swirled, of Earth, of the Queen's words, of the strange feeling that he was part of something important. At last, exhaustion pulled him under. When he woke, soft light filled the room. The city outside shimmered as if waking with him. He rose, stretching stiffly, and the bed dissolved back into the floor as though it had never been. A faint chime sounded, and the attendants returned, bowing politely. They led him through winding corridors that seemed to shift as they walked, opening into wide balconies where wind carried the scent of strange blossoms. The queen awaited him, again, this time in a garden unlike anything he had seen. Trees of crystal rose high, their branches glowing faintly. Flowers opened and closed in rhythm with the breeze, releasing soft light as if they were breathing. A stream of glowing water wound between them, casting ripples of color across the ground. Elias stopped, stunned. It's alive. The queen nodded. Our world grows with us. We do not build it as you do. We shape it, and it shapes us in return. She gestured for him to walk with her. He followed slowly, trying to absorb every detail. The ground felt soft beneath his boots, though it shone like glass. Strange creatures fluttered above, their wings leaving trails of light. You must see more, the queen said. You must understand. As they walked, Elias felt both awe and unease. The world was beautiful, but he could not escape the question echoing in his mind. Why him? Why humanity? Why now? And though the queen's words had been calm and kind, he felt something deeper beneath them, something unspoken, something he was not yet meant to know. Elias walked beside the queen through the strange garden. The glowing flowers swayed without wind, their petals opening and closing like they were breathing. The stream of blue light curved gently at their feet, casting soft ripples across the garden floor. He kept looking around, amazed and unsettled at the same time. Every corner of this world felt alive, yet it was so different from anything he had ever known. The queen walked slowly, her long steps graceful, her eyes glowing faintly, as if they held the same light as the flowers. Elias tried not to stare, but it was difficult. She carried an air of calm, but beneath that calm he felt weight, like she carried something she did not want to show. At last, she stopped at a high balcony overlooking the entire city. Elias stepped forward and his breath caught in his chest. The view was vast and unreal. Towers rose like living crystals, bending slightly as if they had grown toward the light. Pathways curved between them, filled with shining figures moving in quiet harmony. The sky shifted in soft waves of color, silver clouds stretching across a pale blue horizon. The queen turned to him. You see beauty, but beauty can hide weakness. Elias looked at her carefully. Weakness? She nodded slowly. Our people are old. We learned to master the shaping of matter and the flow of energy long before your kind first lit fire. We grew worlds. We built fleets. We thought ourselves eternal. But there is a flaw in us, Commander Kane. We cannot change quickly. We cannot bend as the universe bends, and when storms come, we shatter. Elias frowned, trying to understand. You mean, your people can't adapt? Her eyes softened. Yes. We have knowledge, power, control of things you cannot yet dream of, but when something new strikes, when the unexpected comes, we hesitate. We cling to what we know, and by the time we learn, it is too late. We have watched other civilizations rise and fall. Some were destroyed by enemies, others by themselves. We survived, but only barely. And now, a greater storm approaches. Her words sent a chill down Elias's spine. What kind of storm? The queen did not answer immediately. She turned back toward the city, her glowing eyes reflecting its light. One you cannot yet see. One that has already taken worlds far from here. For now, it is enough that you understand this truth. We need what you have, what your people are. Elias shook his head. But I'm just one man. I'm not a leader. I'm not even sure why I'm standing here. Why me? She turned to face him fully. Because you are human, and humanity is unlike any we have ever known. You are young, yes. Fragile, yes. But when the universe throws fire at you, you walk through it. When you are broken, you find new ways to stand. Your people grow not because you are the strongest, but because you refuse to stop. Her voice grew softer, almost like a whisper. That is what we lack. That is why we need you. Elias's mind spun. He thought of Earth again, of the stubbornness of his people, of the wars they had fought, the storms they had endured, the way humanity had always rebuilt, even when it seemed impossible. He had always thought those struggles were weaknesses. But here, an alien queen was telling him that those same flaws were humanity's strength. He turned away, staring at the city below. "So you saved me because you think I can teach you something?" The queen's voice was steady. "Not only teach, show, live. We need more than lessons. We need proof, and you will give it." Elias stiffened. "Proof? What does that mean?" But the queen only looked at him for a long moment before she gestured toward the path. "Come, there are things you must see." They left the balcony and walked deeper into the palace. The walls shifted as they moved, forming new passages, closing behind them as if the palace itself was alive and guiding their steps. Elias followed, closely, trying to remain calm, though his heart was racing. At last, the passage opened into a chamber unlike the others. The walls were darker, glowing only faintly, and in the center stood a vast sphere of shifting light. Within it moved stars, worlds and shapes Elias could not recognize. It was a map, but one alive, pulsing like a heart. The queen raised her hand and the map shifted. One section grew larger, showing stars Elias had never seen. Planets glowed faintly, but many flickered and dimmed, as though going dark. "This," she said quietly, "is what we face. Systems consumed, life extinguished, entire civilizations erased." Elias stepped closer, his chest tightening. "What's doing this?" The queen's voice was low. "A force without name. Some call it hunger, others call it silence. It moves without pattern. It adapts. It changes. It consumes. And we cannot stop it." Elias felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He stared at the fading stars, trying to imagine entire worlds gone, people he would never know lost forever. The queen turned to him. "Do you understand now why we need you? Your people are not the most advanced, but you are the most unpredictable. You find ways where none exist. You endure. You are the spark that survives the storm. That is why you are here." Elias shook, his head slowly. "I'm just one man. I don't even know if I believe all of this. How could I possibly matter in something this big?" The queen stepped closer, her glowing eyes meeting his. "Because even one human can change the course of everything. That is your gift. That is why we waited for you." Her words struck him deeply. He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that he was no hero. But a part of him remembered every mission he had survived, every impossible situation where he had refused to give up. Maybe that stubbornness was what she meant. Still, the weight of it was overwhelming. He turned away, pressing his hands to his face. "I didn't ask for this. No one asks," the queen said softly. "But when the universe calls, we answer. That is how stories are written. That is how survival is won." Silence fell between them. Elias stood there, breathing slowly, his thoughts swirling. He thought of Earth again, his people, unaware of the storm coming. He thought of this world, beautiful and fragile beneath its power, and he thought of himself, caught between them, chosen for reasons he barely understood. Finally, he lowered his hands and looked back at the queen. "If what you say is true, then what do you want me to do?" Her expression softened, almost like relief. "First, you must prove yourself. Not with weapons, not with strength, but with what makes you human. Then you will see." Elias frowned, uneasy. "Prove myself how?" But the queen only turned back to the glowing map, her voice quiet. "The test will come soon. For now, rest. Tomorrow, your path begins." Elias felt his stomach knot, but he said nothing more. He followed the queen out of the chamber, his mind heavy with what he had learned. He did not know what this test would be, or why the queen believed so strongly in him. But one truth had taken root inside him, and it would not leave. He was not here by accident. And whatever storm was coming, humanity, through him, was already part of it. Elias woke to a soft sound in his chamber, a low chime that pulsed through the air like a heartbeat. The walls glowed faintly, changing from deep silver to a gentle gold. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then he remembered the words of the Queen the night before. The test will come soon. He rose quickly, adjusting his uniform though it was wrinkled from sleep. His eyes still burned from restless dreams of fading stars and silent worlds. He washed in a pool that formed itself. From the floor, the water warm and strangely alive. And then the chamber opened without warning. 2 attendants waited for him, their robes shimmering like flowing light. Without words, they guided him through corridors that shifted around them, forming new paths, until at last they opened into a vast hall. The ceiling arched high, filled, with soft beams of light that moved like streams in the air. The Queen stood at the far end, surrounded by her council. They watched Elias with glowing eyes, their faces unreadable. Elias stepped forward, trying to keep his back straight though. His heart pounded. The Queen's gaze was steady, calm, but there was something sharper in it now, something testing. "Commander Elias Kane," she said, her voice carrying easily through the hall. "You have been brought here because your people carry something we lack. But words are not enough, you must show us." Elias stopped a few steps away, his throat dry. "Show you how." The Queen raised her hand. The floor before him shifted, pulling away to reveal a circle of light. Within it, the floor changed into shifting terrain. First flat stone, then rising pillars, then moving platforms of crystal. The air shimmered, and images formed. Rivers of glowing water, sudden walls of light. Paths that opened and closed without warning. It was like the world itself was alive and changing. "This is the trial of change," the Queen said. "It is not strength that will guide you, but your will, your mind, and your ability to move when the ground shifts beneath you. If you fail, you will not be harmed. But if you succeed, all will know why we have chosen you." Elias looked at the shifting ground, then back at the Queen. "And if I refuse?" The Queen's expression did not change. "Then you will remain, a guest but not a partner, and the truth you came to learn will remain hidden." Elias took a long breath, his jaw tight. He had never been good at walking away, not when something mattered. He stepped onto the circle. The moment his boots touched the surface, it solidified, holding him. The Queen lowered her hand, and the trial began. The floor shifted beneath him, tilting sharply. Elias staggered, nearly falling, but caught himself. The stone turned into liquid, glowing under his feet, then hardened again. He glanced around, searching for a path, but the terrain changed constantly. A platform rose before him, then began to sink. Instinct told him to move, and he leapt, landing hard as the ground behind him melted away. He heard voices echoing around him, not loud, but murmurs from the council watching. He ignored them and kept moving. The path ahead split into 3, each glowing faintly. One closed as soon as he stepped toward it, forcing him to turn quickly to another. His heart raced. There was no clear direction, no map, no plan. It was chaos, shifting faster with each step. He thought of his training back on Earth, the times he had been told to improvise when plans failed. Use what you have. Trust your instincts. That voice came back to him now, and he let it guide him. He stopped looking for a safe path and began to move with the changes, adjusting each time the ground shifted. When a wall of crystal rose suddenly before him, he did not waste time searching for a door. He climbed it, his fingers gripping rough edges until he pulled himself over. When the ground crumbled beneath him, he jumped without knowing what waited, trusting his body to catch balance on whatever formed below. Time blurred. His breathing grew heavy, sweat forming on his brow. The trial did not stop. It grew harder. The light dimmed, shadows stretched, and the floor broke into floating platforms that spun slowly in the air. Elias paused, catching his breath. His legs, burned, His chest ached, but he looked ahead. There was no end in sight. He almost laughed bitterly. Figures, he muttered to himself. No one ever makes it easy. He crouched, focused, and jumped to the next platform. It spun under his weight, threatening to throw him off, but he adjusted, shifting his balance until it steadied. Another leap, another test. He moved carefully, but not too carefully because hesitation was more dangerous than risk. At one point, a gap stretched too far. He looked at it, his heart hammering. He couldn't make it by jumping alone. He looked around quickly and saw a piece of the platform edge hanging loose. He ripped it free, used it as a makeshift bridge, and crossed. The piece cracked beneath him, but he made it across just before it shattered into light. The council murmured, louder now. Elias didn't know if they were impressed or skeptical, but he didn't care. He wasn't doing this for them. He was doing it because he refused to quit. At last, the platforms merged again into a single path. Elias stumbled forward, his legs shaking, and found himself at the center of the circle once more. The terrain stilled. The glowing light faded, leaving only smooth stone beneath his boots. Silence filled the hall. Elias looked up, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. He met the queen's gaze. For a moment she did not move. Then she raised her hand and the hall echoed with a single clear sound, like a bell. The council bowed their heads. The queen's eyes glowed brighter. "You, see," she said softly, though her voice carried to all corners of the hall. "This is what it means to be human." He did not seek control. He did not cling to what was stable. He moved with the storm. He found paths where there were none. This is the strength we do not have. Elias stood there, chest still rising and falling, unsure what to say. He had not thought of it as strength. To him it had been survival, nothing more. The queen descended from her place, walking toward him. When she stood before him, she inclined her head slightly, not a bow, but something close. "You have proven what I knew. That is why you are here. That is why your kind matters." Elias swallowed, his throat tight. "And now? What happens now?" The queen's expression was calm, but her eyes carried something deeper. "Now, Commander, you will learn why we truly brought you. The storm approaches, and you must see it with your own eyes." The hall fell silent again. Elias stood in the center, still catching his breath but already feeling the weight of the next step pressing down on him. He had survived the test, but he knew this was only the beginning. Elias stood in the center of the great hall, his chest still rising and falling from the trial. The stone beneath his boots was cool, steady, no longer shifting or breaking. Around him, the council remained silent, their glowing eyes fixed upon him. The queen's presence filled the room, calm yet powerful, and her gaze rested only on him. He had passed her test, though he still did not understand the full meaning of it. The queen had spoken of storms, of danger, of something vast sweeping through the galaxy. But the truth, the real reason she had brought him here, remained hidden. That weight pressed heavily on him now, a shadow behind her glowing eyes. "At last," she spoke, "you have proven yourself. You have shown us why humanity endures. And now, Commander Elias Kane, you must know the truth." The floor shifted again, but not into a trial. A circle of light formed around them, rising into a dome that closed off the council. Elias and the queen now stood alone, surrounded by a map of stars that stretched endlessly in every direction. Elias looked around, his breath catching. He saw galaxies turning, systems burning, strange colors and shapes swirling across the void. But his eyes were drawn to one thing above all: an expanding wave of darkness, blacker than space itself, spreading across the stars and consuming them one by one. Wherever it touched, the light of a world flickered out. The queen raised her hand, and the image focused on a cluster of systems closer to her own. Worlds once shining bright now hung dead, broken and silent. Fleets that had once guarded them floated in pieces, scattered like dust. "This," she said softly, her voice heavy with sorrow, "is why you are here. A force moves through the galaxy, one that cannot be reasoned with, one that consumes without end. We have fought it. We have resisted it. But always it changes and always it overcomes. My people cannot bend fast enough to withstand it. But you. She turned her glowing eyes on him. You can. Elias stared at the dark wave, his throat tight. What is it? A fleet? A weapon? The Queen shook her head slowly. We do not know its true form. It takes many shapes, many faces. To some it is machines without mind. To others it is living swarms. To still others it is a silence that drains life itself. It is all of these and none. It adapts. It becomes what we fear most. That is why we call it the silence. Because, when it passes, only emptiness remains. The name sent a chill through Elias. He could almost hear it in his mind, a soundless void pressing against him. He swallowed hard, his fists tightening. And you think I can help stop this? The Queen stepped closer, her voice steady. Not just you. Humanity. You are not strong enough alone. But your kind has what we do not. You change. You create. You endure even when all reason says you should fall. That is what the silence cannot predict. That is why it fears you, though you do not yet know it. Elias blinked. It fears us. Her eyes glowed brighter. Yes. The silence feeds on patterns. It learns. It grows. But you are chaos, wrapped in flesh. You are the storm that bends without breaking. That is why we brought you here, not to save only my world, but to prepare your own, to prepare all who will stand against what comes. Elias turned away, staring at the wave of darkness consuming stars. The weight of her words pressed down on him like gravity. He had been, drifting in space, lost, ready to die. Now he was standing in front of an alien queen, being told that his people held the key to fighting something that devoured civilizations. He shook his head slowly. I'm no savior. I'm just a man who got lost. The Queen's voice softened, almost kind. And yet you are here. Do you think it is accident? Do you think the universe makes such mistakes? No, Commander. You are here because humanity is ready to be seen. Her words struck something deep inside him. He thought of Earth again. The crowded cities, the restless skies, the endless struggles. He thought of people who refused to quit even when they had nothing left. Maybe she was right. Maybe humanity was small, fragile, and imperfect, but it was also stubborn. It never stopped moving forward. The Queen gestured, and the dome shifted again. Now Elias saw Earth, small and blue, spinning silently in the void. His chest tightened at the sight, but then shadows began to creep across the edges of the image, faint but growing. Elias stepped closer. No, not Earth. The Queen's voice was firm. That is why you must return. You must carry what you have seen here. You must prepare, your people. For the silence will come, and when it does, humanity must be ready. You will not stand alone. We will fight with you. But without your kind, there is no hope. Elias stood there staring at the image of his world. A lump formed in his throat. He had left Earth thinking he was just another explorer, a man charting unknown space. Now he realized he was carrying something far greater than himself. Slowly, he turned to the Queen. So that's why you saved me. That's why you've been watching us. You weren't just curious, you were waiting. The Queen inclined her head. Yes, we saw you in visions long before you were born. Not you alone, but what you represent. The spark of a species that refuses to die. We knew one day humanity would face the silence. And when that day comes, you will not hide. You will rise. Silence filled the dome. Elias looked down at his hands, rough from years of work, scarred from missions, ordinary in every way, and yet she spoke as if they held the power of entire worlds. Finally, he lifted his head. If this is true, if this is real, then I'll do whatever it takes. Not because I believe I'm special, but because I know what's at stake. Earth won't run. We'll fight. The Queen's eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time Elias thought he saw something like relief in them. Then hope remains. The dome dissolved, and they were back in the hall. The council bowed their heads. Elias stood taller now, though the weight of what he had learned still pressed heavily on him. The Queen raised her voice so all could hear. This man has shown us why humanity must stand beside us. He will return to his people, and together, we will prepare. The silence comes, but we will not fade. We will endure. A sound filled the hall, not a cheer, but a low, resonant tone, as if the walls themselves agreed. Elias stood in the center, feeling the eyes of an entire civilization upon him. He was only one man, far from home. Yet he knew in this moment that he carried more than his own life. He carried the future of his species. Later, when he stood, again on the balcony overlooking the alien city, he looked up at the sky. Stars shone brightly above, distant and silent. Somewhere out there the silence was moving closer. But he no longer felt helpless. He no longer felt lost. The Queen's words echoed in his mind. You are chaos wrapped in flesh. You are the storm that bends without breaking. Elias clenched his fists and drew a deep breath. Whatever was coming, humanity would be ready. And when the silence arrived, it would learn what it meant to face a people who refused to fall. For the first time since he had been stranded, Elias smiled faintly. He was not lost anymore. He had found his way into a story far larger than himself.